Our topic tonight is AI, friend or foe in a purpose-driven world. So I thought I'd first of all just set the scene on what that really means to us. Obviously, as businesses, our purpose is in part to make money, right? And AI, we know that AI has a lot of potential to make money, right? It can be a friend to money. But what if our purpose is a little bit more than that? You know, we have to balance. We're constantly playing this balancing act of benefiting profit, yes, but also people and the planet. So a classic example of that is data center use, which the internet uses. And that's been a real challenge for us. You know, how can we be a B Corp when we're using so much electricity in data centers and everything? And so Marty has led the charge for us to put a lot of effort into offsetting that impact on the planet. And that's not cheap, but that's something that's incredibly important to us. So I guess the topic today, I wanted to sort of frame that a little bit is, you know, is AI a friend or foe to us when our purpose is more than just making money? Thank you very much to our amazing panelists, Mia, Tim, Samantha, and Angie. What I'm going to do next is hand over, let them introduce themselves. I'll give you maybe 1 minute each to just introduce yourselves and say a little bit about yourself. Maybe what's your purpose? Mia.
My name is Mia. I run a business called Automate Social. I kind of started off my journey when I moved to India and I was working in the plastic waste industry. We're working with the plastic mafia and trying to reduce plastic waste. And I kind of realized at that point that social media has an absolutely equalizing effect. Anyone can start a social media account. Anyone can start to run ads. Anyone can start to run high impact campaigns to their organizations. So I launched my business working with United Nations, World Bank, a bunch of amazing organizations. And then since AI has come out, it absolutely accelerated everything. And now I just feel like complete empowerment to really help organizations go after their biggest and boldest goals by generating customers with AI-driven social media ads. So yeah, thank you for having us on the panel.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mia. Great to set it off on a nice, light tone, because I think there's a fair bit of doom and gloom around AI. That's really, really good.
Hi everybody, I'm Tim. I'm one of the 3 co-founders of a business called Time Under Tension. We started almost exactly 2 years ago, I think probably almost to the day. And we're a consultancy and agency, work 100% within generative AI. And what we do is we work with clients and brands to help them understand what's possible with generative AI, hopefully share some of our enthusiasm about AI and how they can put that into practice within their brand teams, their marketing teams, their product teams, and get the most out of it. My background is not data or analytics, it's design and marketing, customer experience. So definitely come from that. Don't ask me any AI machine learning questions, please.
Thanks, Tim. Samantha?
Hey, my name's Sam Tate, or Samantha Tate, because I couldn't get Sam Tate on Google because he's a professional snowboarder. So I'm now Samantha Tate today. I've been involved in digital since 2008. I used to play rugby for England. I was a PE teacher, I broke my leg. 2008 decided to create a video where I wanted businesses to bid on advertising space in my cast, pumped it out on Twitter, 6,000 followers the next day, no word of a lie, 27,000 viewers on YouTube, and then Channel 7 News reached out to me a couple of weeks later and said, will you be our social media resident? And I went, hell yeah, I know more than they do. And since then I've been in the trenches learning. So Think Tank Social was born 2008, it still goes to this day. And then a couple of years ago, we opened up another agency called BRND, because we were going with our passion and purpose, and yes, tech's out there, but it was all about connection with people. And so what we do now is we work with organisations around employee engagement. How do we engage the disengaged to get to do something that's purposeful and meaningful? And that's me.
And Angie.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Angie Farrugia. I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement for B-Lab Australia and Aotearoa New Zealand. I've been in the role now for about 3 years, but prior to that I've had quite a wide variety of different experiences, including flirting with the digital world for a number of years. My role is leading our community and communications function for B-Lab, and we certify B corporations, of which Luminary, our generous hosts, are. And the movement is really inspiring. But I've been working in this space for sort of 25 years, so it's a lot of change has happened over that time, and I'm really excited to see the hopefully purpose-driven world that we're in leading to positive outcomes with AI as well.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Angie. And a fantastic segue as well. Thank you for finishing on purpose-driven, because what I wanted to ask first is the panel, what does purpose-driven mean to you?
I might respond to that on how we think about purpose in the B Corp movement, because it's quite a critical cornerstone of what we do in terms of certifying B corporations. I think the notion of kind of economically that businesses are set up to make money has been a relatively new concept where profit has come first. It's probably been the last sort of 50 to 60 years since the 70s where that kind of conceptual idea that businesses exist to make money above all else has really taken the forefront. And we saw that hit its stride in the 80s and 90s, and then a new movement emerged in the early 2000s, and that's when B Corp was born in 2006. And we see purpose as being a purpose beyond making profit. So all B Corps commit to actually building that into their legal governance of their business. So they change their constitution to recognise that their business is established to deliver a purpose that has a social or an environmental outcome beyond profit, and that they're interested in the interests of their stakeholders. So that's a mission-locking commitment that you make for the duration of that business's life.
Absolutely. So thanks, Angie. Now, that's all nice. Let's get straight to the AI friend or foe stuff. One thing you're excited about with AI and one thing that you're worried about. So you have to, one friend, one foe point. Let's start with you, Sam.
All right, thanks. I'm excited about AI massively at the moment because it feels like back in, the early days, 1999 maybe, a little bit past that, it's very exciting. It's all new. We're learning, like my mind's fizzing again. But I mean, the opportunities are endless, aren't they, with AI? But what I am excited about is obviously the efficiencies, how we can come up with ideas and we present our strategy and then we can put it into certain AI tools and come up with things that we may not have thought about before. So, I mean, we're all doing that in the room already, but I continue to do it and I love it. And I just love, like, every week, every month, there's a new tool that comes out that just makes things better in a way that's going to help us be more creative or more efficient in what we do. And when it comes to the worry, I think it's just a case of, we were speaking about it earlier. Do you remember, guys, when Facebook came out for business? And there's loads of organisations going, oh my God, we're going to cut you out of Internet Explorer. You're not having Facebook at work. And obviously lots of people then found other ways to make that happen. But it's actually looking at the ethics and going, before you actually load up and move into it, like what's going to happen and actually plan that out. And what I think is that it's moving so quickly, we all want to be involved, that we get into the doing for actually the planning and thinking at times. So I think that's where the worry lies.
Angie.
I'll just build on that, because when we were talking about that at the time in 2004, 2005, I was working for Microsoft in an account direction role. Facebook was out and we were doing comms and PR, doing B2B comms for their development team, selling software to people who didn't need it, and lots of ethical dilemmas that we were facing. And that time and space, it was like, should we actually have a business profile on Facebook when it wasn't designed for that? And lots of ethical conversations that were happening so fast. Like, people were posting and compromising professional businesses and reputations and that type of thing. So that kind of leads to, I guess, the challenge we're in right now with AI is the governance around it and the pace of change. So compared to 20 years ago when that conversation was happening, it wasn't quite as fast as where we are now. So that's the one thing that concerns me. But the one thing that excites me, or the friend, is the opportunity to impact like environmental conservation, human rights in supply chains, like the opportunity for businesses to use AI as a force for good in their operations is really powerful if we can get the governance right.
So I've spent thousands of hours just hanging out in my bedroom at midnight, learning about all of these AI tools. And before, when I was running my business, I always felt like I had such a huge list of tasks that I needed to do. And then as soon as AI came out, it was like the first time I could get my crazy ideas into a reality. And the other day I was trying to work out how I could create my own app. And then I found this program called create.xyz. And within 3 hours, I had prompted an app program to create an entire app that runs some of the most exhausting tasks of my business. And it was like almost like this huge weight was lifted off me. I felt so empowered. I felt like I could sort of almost compete with larger businesses for the first time. So that was such a remarkable thing. And I think it can take our biggest, boldest, most exciting ideas and make it a reality so quickly, which is why it's like a total friend. Why I think it's a foe, there's a really scary thing that's happening where a lot of people are getting themselves and turning themselves into an avatar online. It's just started to happen. So people are putting on these VR headsets and then they're creating a digital version of themselves. This digital version can do their banking. It can connect with people online. It can talk to different people. And what's happening there is they're removing the need to go out and do their own banking. They're removing the need to go out and do their own conversations with their friends. And I'm terrified of what's going to happen when we actually remove those incidental conversations that we're meant to be having with people.
I think that's a really interesting point, because that whole false, AI-driven avatar for me, obviously from my tech background, I immediately start worrying about security and things. But it's really interesting to hear that could deeply affect human connection as well, and that's a real risk there.
The pace of change is, for me, like that's something that I live for. Like I just really get excited about discovering. Every week there's something new that I'm like, oh my God, that's just insane. Like earlier this week, the new Gemini model has built in these image editing tools where you just prompt it, and it's like Photoshop and chat combined. And I come from a digital design background, learnt Photoshop back in like the mid-90s, and I'm like, I don't need Photoshop. I can just actually just word it into existence. And it just blew me away. And every week there's something like that, which is really, really cool. And then kind of think about how that we can use that in our business and how clients can use that in their business. That's really, really fun. So that's a friend. The foe, I mean, I would say there's like a broad foe of just all the unintended consequences and downstream effects that we don't know what they will be yet. Like we're starting to get like some hints at, like there are some that we can predict, but there will be others that we can't predict. It's crazy to me. Like we started 2 years ago, that was right around when ChatGPT launched, and so we're only 2 years in, and there's just so much, stuff in this area, so much stuff in this field, that there will be downstream downsides, and we don't know what all of those will be, and I think it's not just hard to predict them, but it's very hard to mitigate them.
Yeah, like online privacy is pretty much dead these days.
Yeah. I think we saw it immediately too, as soon as our staff started using AI tools, and then sort of security and privacy and everything was kind of late to the party. And you don't realise until later that a lot of these tools have an option deep in their settings to say, oh, by the way, please don't take all of my information and load it into your model. And you have to turn that off or pay a lot of money. And so and I'm sure, obviously we got on that as quickly as we could, but a lot of companies probably are still unaware of those downstream effects of, sending all their stuff to DeepSeek in China. Where's the tension between purpose-driven and AI today?
The environmental impact of, as you said right at the very top, it's immensely energy intensive to train a large language model. Like the one off the pre-training compute is huge, enormous. I mean, it takes 6 months sometimes to train these models, or 2 weeks if you're in China apparently. And so that's using a huge amount of energy. And then there's the inference, which is every time you type some words into ChatGPT, it's using a bit of computer power to create the answer. And so on one hand, like that's really bad, but that is becoming way more energy efficient, especially the inference as time goes. But then there's a lot more people using it. So overall, the environmental negative impact is sort of climbing.
Yeah, I always wonder about this. AI is valuable, but it doesn't have values. So it doesn't love, it doesn't cry, it doesn't share our emotion. And so that's a really dangerous thing. Like imagine if you met someone who had zero emotion. You would not want them in your life. So yes, it's extremely valuable, but it's valuable as a function. And I really think we need to park it as a functional thing and not trying to lean on it too much for the really important conversations we need to have. I know some people use it as a therapist. Some people use it as a friend. So it can't replace that. So I really think like the core tension there is realizing that this is a soulless thing. So we need to make sure we camp it and park it in that area.
I think that's a really a beautiful connection between like the humanity, the importance of retaining our humanity.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, but I think to your point about the environmental impact, and there is a bit more rising consciousness around the use of AI. I know I have an ethical dilemma every time I do a prompt. I'm like, how much water am I wasting? And I constantly have, like, how much energy am I using? And that actually forces me personally to write better prompts, so I write less prompts. But anyway, that aside, I think the other unknown is, or the unseen, is the I guess, the ghost workers or the side of people behind AI. So there are humans that actually support the development of data labeling and that type of thing. And we saw last year a whole bunch of workers got together in Kenya who were data labeling for organisations like OpenAI and Facebook and Space AI, and wrote an open letter to Joe Biden, basically disclosing the conditions that they're working in are equivalent to a modern day slavery. And it's really like potentially leading to vicarious trauma, some of the things that they have to do where they are looking at labelling images that are quite horrific, for example. So I think not a lot of people are aware of that underside or that shadow side of AI, and that's something that is attention.
Do you think AI is good or bad for creativity? And is it stifling creativity, or is it enabling creativity, and why or why not?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys remember how there was someone that created The Weeknd's, a song by The Weeknd, and everyone was like, this song is a banger, and everyone was like vibing out to it, and then they realized that it was created by AI. So this is happening everywhere. Like your parents are probably being like, look at this amazing photo of this great mountain and this person's jumping over it. It's like, no, that's AI. So I feel like there's this whole area where people are using it to sort of mislead, or they're using it in these different ways, but it's almost helping the internet like reach its new level. So there's some videos that I've seen lately where I'm like, that is so epic, and someone would have had to be so creative to have like come up with those amazing ideas. I'm like, when you're prompting something like Midjourney, if you're not creative and if you're not saying anything creative, you get really crappy images. But if you're super creative and you're like, I want a lemon riding a skateboard, also wearing a Hawaiian shirt with a mohawk, then you get something really interesting.
I think there is a risk to some of the critical thinking skills that if we get lazy and we're using that, we're too reliant on AI. But I also can see the progress that it may emerge, like giving access to tools to more people to be creative that perhaps otherwise wouldn't. There is that also underside of some of those artists who have lost potential work as a result of the tools coming out to replace their crafts, which they've learned over many, many years. So that's something to consider as well. But we've seen that throughout time as new technology has emerged, and that's led to other ones like photography leading to cinema, for example.
How do you think we can mitigate or help AI's impact on the planet? And do you think there's any potential AI could potentially be an ally in this fight, or is it us versus AI?
No, I mean, we live in a really polarized world, and we've tried to discourage that, friend versus foe actually mentality, and recognize the nuance in the world that we live in. I think that yes, the answer is yes. AI can support us and we're seeing that in the B Corp community as well. So lots of B Corps who are set up to have a purpose and a stakeholder governance framework are really considering their choices and how they use AI for positive impact. And I think what we're trying to model with nearly 10,000 businesses being certified worldwide is that there is a better way to do it, and we need to see that on scale. So what we really need to see is governments stepping up to follow that and build that into companies, directors duties, that as part of our way of doing business, is that it's part of our decision making. And that's not unique to AI, that's to all businesses to drive the economy forward, to be better for people and planet.
Yeah, so I've actually been using AI to help the planet since I was working in Bali at a wild dog and monkey sanctuary. So we had like 400 wild street dogs, 60 monkeys, outbreak of tuberculosis with monkeys. One of them got shot in the eye with a tranquilizer gun when we were trying to relax it. So we had zero time. There was no time to reach out to brand partners. There was no time to do the things that we needed to do. It was so hectic that it was almost like there's only one thing that can help us, and it was actually AI. So we created all these amazing AI systems for our outreach to make sure that we're generating enough income to make sure the dogs were fed and the monkeys were housed. So we used Apollo, which is this lead generation tool which can find all of the local businesses in the local area and send automations, outreach to them. So we used Phantom Buster, which helped us find Google Maps businesses, so we could reach out to them and we could invite them to our events, ask them to donate to our causes. So it was almost like a lifeline during that time. And I think when your back is against the wall and you're like, man, I've got no time, I've got all this chaos going on, it's actually like such a good thing to implement. And little organizations, like our tiny little organization in Bali, could actually access like thousands of contacts that they wouldn't have been able to before and help keep their charitable funds going just because of AI. So yeah, I fully believe it can help the planet, like 100%.
This idea of people, that we don't realise might be working in effectively a sweatshop to support AI, and also on the other side, like Tim, I'm sure you're very aware of how much some of these premium AI tools can cost as well. Like ChatGPT Operator was like $200 US a month or something like that. The societal inequality is what I'm talking about here, and AI potentially, increasing that. Is there anything we can do to try to minimise that inequality that AI might sort of push on us? Tim, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with the OpenAI. Has anyone here heard of OpenAI Operator?
Yes, I love it.
Apart from Tim, and that's very, very niche. It's that's not mainstream. That's going to help many people. But ChatGPT, just the free version, my free version is the same as someone in a development in Bali, like someone who just has a phone and an internet connection can use the free version of ChatGPT. They basically put all the good stuff, all the best models now in the free version, and they can do translation. They can look up, healthcare. They can look up, what some advice for helping dogs. They can do amazing things that were not practical or even possible 2 years ago, and have this basically a super, super intelligent free thing in their pocket that they can use to do whatever they want, and it's just the same as what I've got.
I think it's a really tricky question. Like it's a bit of the idea that we've got these massive billionaires or huge companies that are benefiting, and that divide between the very, very rich and the poor is increasing. Again, it's not unique to AI or tech, but it's something that we are seeing continue to get worse around the world, which is part of the reason why B Corp exists. We're trying to challenge that model. So my hope and aspiration is that more businesses working in that space do take this lens and do actually think about that. Last year, or currently, OpenAI has moved from, they were a not-for-profit, and they've declared that they're moving towards becoming a benefit corporation, which for anyone who is aware of that, it's slightly different and quite different to B corporations. So for B corporations, we need to meet standards across environmental and social performance standards, and commit to a governance change, which I mentioned earlier, where you change your constitution, and commit to transparency and ongoing impact. So there's a few requirements, whereas benefit corporation legislation is only available in certain jurisdictions, and it does say that you are committed to the interests of stakeholders, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're committed to a purpose or you're meeting specific standards. So it's an interesting another tension where we're seeing like these people with a lot of power and a lot of money can wield a lot of change, and we do need to see the regulation and I guess the accountability improve across more businesses in the economy.
So I would say a really good thing to do is just like in your local sphere of influence, just go out there and think, okay, who in my local sphere of influence actually might need help just learning how to use ChatGPT. I'm starting a program called AI Without Barriers, where I'm going to be teaching pro bono people with disabilities, people that are suffering homelessness, people who are suffering domestic violence, just how to use basic AI. Here's ChatGPT, here's how to use your calendar, here's how to do basic technology practices. And once they get through that education barrier, I mean, these programs are free. It's such an amazing thing when they learn it. So yeah, super passionate about making everybody have this equalizer tool, not just like, tech bros or anything,
More and more now we're seeing AI moving more and more autonomous. So we're seeing agents come in and all that kind of stuff. And as you said, like avatars and everything like that. What can we do to, obviously that's coming, whether we like it or not, right? What can we do to maintain that human connection and decision-making ability and that humanness while all of that's happening? You go. What's it?
We need to set boundaries with AI and our lives and what we give it access to. Because if we don't actually set clear boundaries with ourselves now, we're going to end up like those dystopian movies where they're in a pod and they have like glasses on and they don't talk to anyone. So we need to kind of make those decisions now and be really clear about it. Otherwise, we're actually going to like completely sever the connection to humanity. So I feel like boundaries is really important. And then, just making sure we know what future we want to go into, because you're all very smart people. You're obviously like you have great careers, and you can make such a difference now in just like what you do. So yeah, it's all about just like, all right, what are my boundaries? What is AI not going to take over? And how much do I value human connection? Because we can't end up like Matrix style.
Tim, how can we maintain autonomy and human decision-making power?
Well, I mean, obviously agree with what Mia said, but I think it's just super, like the autonomous agents and the technology behind that is just so new that, I mean, it doesn't even really work today. It's maybe a year away from being kind of working, and then, so I think it's just too hard to predict, like practically how we will do that.
Yeah, I like what you said before, Tim, about that we don't really know what the long-term effects will be. But I also have a bit of faith in humanity that we will collectively realise that we have shared problems and that we'll innovate to change those. So that's my hope. I hope that we'll collectively realise that we're maybe going down a slippery slope and pull ourselves back from that.
How can we prepare for the future of AI to ensure that it's a force for good? I want you guys to give us that. How are we going to make sure AI is a force for good?
I think that point we just raised earlier around like being conscious users, but also being advocates for change, like thinking about the impact we can have in our local community, or what impact we can have on our businesses or our employer, and the potentially moving into what we like to see in the B Corp movement is advocating for change and collective action. So joining groups and being part of conversations and advocacy that really matters to make a difference.
Great. Sam.
Having clarity around why we're using it, and then understanding where the data's being pulled from, and then going back to your values and purpose of why.
I'm expecting there's probably a lot of company leaders or leaders of teams in the room, and I think in your leadership role, it's for the people that you're leading, for your staff, and or if you're a community organisation, the people in the community, raising the education and training, like just fundamentals, make sure people know about that button in ChatGPT, turn that off. But also being aware of all the kind of exciting things that you can do with the technology, like you're talking about Midjourney, so showing people how to use that, and so making sure people are excited about it and aware of it, aware of the risks and the trade-offs, best practices for data security, and then getting them to kind of build AI literacy basically. And I think, it's all very abstract unless you know how to use the tools and get the benefit from it, and then you can be more aware of the potential trade-offs as well.
I would say let AI automate all the work that you find frustrating, that you hate, that you just like all the negative administration work. But then as soon as you automate it, don't fill up your lives with extra work. Like, calm down. Just realize that you can actually access more of your time to do more of the things that you like doing. So don't become a productive robot that does all this extra stuff. Automate, say sayonara, and then move on and do actual things that you enjoy, because once you become more productive, you deserve a gold star and you deserve a bit of time back.
A bath and a candle.
When we're using AI in our business every day, everyone is, how can we keep checks on our carbon footprint for using AI? Is it possible, and how can we do it?
Has anyone been into a data center and heard the noise? Yeah, it's so intense. You feel almost shaky because it's so loud. The data centers at the moment, they have unencumbered growth, so they don't really care about sustainability. But I actually think if we put pressure on brands or data center providers, and everybody uses their voices in order to tell people what's the norm, a lot of these data centers, they'll start putting solar panels on. A few of my clients are actually putting plants, beds in these data centers to suck in some of the I don't know, radioactive, whatever it is. But yeah, there is ways to make the data centers more active, but you need to put a lot of pressure onto these companies in order to do so. But yeah, as a general user, it's as long as you're using ChatGPT ethically and using it to promote good causes and doing good work in the world, I actually think you're doing more good than the environmental impact. But yeah, eventually let's like really put pressure on these companies in order to make them more sustainable.
Agree.
Right.
It's also cool to see some of the businesses that are using AI outside of the use of AI, but how they're using AI to measure their carbon impact and their footprint and improve that, and using that technology to improve, say, logistics or transport, or how they're tracking supply chain and human rights in the supply chain. Like, there's good uses to mitigate your carbon footprint by using AI. So it sort of has that circular effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the impact will be of AI on the next generation, or the AI natives?
The Gen Alpha, which is the digital natives right now, I think we're just kicked into beta now in 2025. So who knows what the beta generation will look like. But Gen Alphas, some of the trends they've noticed is like they're much more critical, like aware, because they are so connected to technology. They're much more critical and aware of like assessing a fake, for example. So I think we can have a bit of faith as well that they've grown up with it, so they'll bring some of that awareness with them. But there's also this tension as well of some of them rejecting technology and going back to the OG flip phones and things like that to disconnect. So I'm interested to see how that continues to play out and what that does in terms of how they choose to engage in future years.
Sure. Let's finish on this one. If we rely solely on AI, will we become robotic conductors while AI takes over our jobs? And are you worried that AI could outsmart us and take over?
I mean, I think like every job that I've had in the last sort of 30 years of my career, there's the fun stuff and then there's the boring stuff. And to ask Tim what I think is the boring stuff, because it's the stuff he has to follow up and ask me to do. And like if I can just automate or use AI to get the boring stuff done, it's not going to do all of it like in a snap. But if it used to take me an hour a day and I can get that down to 20 minutes a day, then I've got more time to, what were your words? Like just relax and chill out, have a bath.
Oh yeah.
Go for a walk. I think Sam said go for a bath. Have a bath.
Maybe
But
save a
spend some time with my kids, or do the fun stuff and creative stuff that I enjoy doing. So.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much to our panelists today for coming in. Everyone give them a round of applause. Thank you.